What's going on, guys? I'm back with my last Rocky episode. I'm going to be doing Creed as well, so stay tuned for that. And today, we're going to be talking about the film that nobody really asked for per se, but it's still good in its own right. The sixth installment to the Rocky franchise, Rocky Balboa. When it comes to the story, this feels like the most like the original Rocky amongst all the other films in the franchise. Sly fulfills that original style of the character very well, with it naturally being his baby, where it seems like he can switch it on and off like a radio. This film is steeped in nostalgia, which may be a downside for some, or an upside, and I tend to agree that it's more on the downside. However, it is important to note that this film is unique and distinct from the first one, maintaining its own identity. The opening act is essentially a tribute to the best moments of the first installment, which can be seen as nostalgia bait. I was all for it because it immediately got the emotions pumping and set the tone for the rest of the film effectively. As you can imagine, this film explores similar themes to the previous installments, such as go for it, testing oneself, and believing in oneself. However, it also incorporates a grounding tone that addresses the reality of the past and the present, which weighs heavily on every character involved. If the franchise had ended with Rocky V, I personally wouldn't have been upset. I am what seems to be the only Rocky V fan on the planet. Nevertheless, Rocky Balboa is a true capstone to the franchise, representing Sly's desire to go out on his own terms, which is a reoccurring theme in these films. When it comes to the characters, like the first film, this movie primarily focuses on the character development, which contributes significantly to the success. Rocky Balboa centers around the characters and their interactions, featuring numerous heartwarming moments between all the characters involved, particularly between Rocky and his son, Rocky and Paulie, and Rocky and Little Marie. The creators effectively portray each character's motives and emotions, from Robert's insecurities and remorse towards his father, including the loss of his mother as well, to Paulie's grief over the loss of his sister and his struggle with the harsh realities of his past actions. Little Marie faces challenging times at home and with their work. Mason Dixon, the antagonist, feels disrespected, similar to how Apollo Creed was, while Rocky grapples with various issues of a midlife crisis. Despite their individual challenges, some live alone while others share similar feelings. However, by the final 5 minutes of the film, all their troubles are resolved, providing a truly satisfying conclusion to not only this movie, but also the entire franchise. As for individual characters, Stallone returns to his iconic persona from the first film, beloved by many for his sympathetic nature and his infectious energy. In this film, he's depicted as a kind-hearted old man at the end of the day, who simply feeds the birds and visits his deceased wife every morning, despite receiving considerable love and attention from the community. However, beneath his outward appearance lies a complex internal struggle with his feelings and unfulfillment, the pain of losing loved ones, and other personal challenges. As many people may know from my past reviews, or maybe even their own research, Sly wanted to add several other elements to his films but never really get the chance to do so for whatever reason. For instance, Rocky attempted to attain a license in Rocky IV after Apollo's death, and there was a plain voiceover when he was knocked down in the same film. However, in this film, it seemed that Stallone had complete creative control and skillfully incorporated these additions. This only makes the send-off even sweeter for me. This film also closely mirrors struggles that Stallone faced in the 1990s. He had achieved tremendous success in the 80s, mainly because of Rocky, but nearly became irrelevant in the 1990s. Studios refused to grant him permission to make this film, as he'd been trying to get it off the ground since the late 1990s. Therefore, the courtroom scene in this film was an excellent addition and almost an unwritten love letter to himself. The next character that I didn't think would be brought back to this franchise, but I was glad that she did, was Little Marie. She was a mere plot device in the first film to enhance Rocky's character, but in this film, she becomes a much more prominent character. With the absence of Adrian, she inadvertently fills the void for Rocky, and their bond is nothing short of sweet. I am extremely grateful they made their relationship platonic. If they had gone the other way, it could have single-handedly ruined the film for me. It would have essentially trashed the Adrian character and made it feel flat-out weird, to be blunt. While Milo Ventimiglia, I definitely butchered that name, you know who I'm talking about, his son, the kid from Grown Ups too. Anyways, his performance in this film wasn't really the best, but I still can appreciate it nonetheless. It loosely references Rocky V, further justifying his significance in that film. Their bond was okay, with Sly undoubtedly carrying the load, but it ultimately pays off well in the final act when Robert hits his character arc. In my humble opinion, Paulie is at his best in Rocky Balboa. He is still a bit of a jerk-off, but he's significantly improved. We now witness a range of positive emotions from him, reflecting his profound emotional turmoil after losing his sister and feeling like a failure at life. This newfound vulnerability explains Rocky's constant closeness to him. One aspect that could have further enhanced this movie is if they began with Adrian's death. They briefly tell us what happened, and we have to go with it, which is fine. However, incorporating this layer of Rocky's loss within the film would have added depth to the tone, intensifying the drama, and made this narrative more purposeful. As far as the script goes, while I've shed many tears from Rocky 2 all the way through Rocky 5, this is arguably the saddest film of the franchise. It delves into death, interspersed with powerful, heartfelt moments and triumph sequences. However, the overall tone is rather glum, enhanced by the dark color grading and the occasional all-blue color scheme. Despite this somber tone, there are still plenty of laughs, primarily from Rocky and the signature Rocky-isms, as well as Paulie's own share of humor as well. The subtle comedic elements are expertly woven into the glum atmosphere, so it does work pretty well. The editing, and more importantly, the camera work are truly exceptional in this film, elevating it alongside the character development. It's evident that Stallone is comfortable and way more competent behind the camera, showcasing a significant improvement from the previous 3 installments. While I adore the fighting sequences in the last 3 installments, this one feels more authentic. Granted, Stallone and Lundgren go at it in Rocky IV for a good portion of their scrap. It almost feels like the entire sequence of Stallone and Tava was all real. I'm gonna be honest, it did seem like Antonio Tava was pulling his punches where some of his 1-2s looked like mere slaps. But mostly, it didn't seem like they were pulling many punches, and that's extremely commendable for Sly at his age. While this fight may not be my personal favorite, it's unique and stylish in its own way, being very reminiscent of a real WBC or WBO world title boxing match. The cinematography and color scheme further enhance this experience. They do quick flashbacks to reveal Rocky's past injuries, while short black and white segments incorporate pops of color from their blood or the color on their shorts. The visual style is pretty well executed. Now, although this film is still good, and honestly maybe even great to the hardcore Rocky fans, I must admit that it's arguably the most flawed film. For starters, and this is a direct response to the critics of Rocky V, I can't help but wonder if this is what you truly wanted to see. An old man trading blows with a young, hungry, and undefeated boxer. I just wasn't too keen on it. My first major issue is that the film takes itself way too serious at times, as if it was on track for another Oscar, which it wasn't even close to. Personally, I believe a significant part of the first film's success was the ability to strike a balance between seriousness and humor. However, this one feels like it's trying to be better than it actually was. Another major issue is that the film naturally repeats its steps from Rocky 1, including some of Rocky's dilemmas, as well as approach to Mason Dixon's character. While this doesn't feel lazy, it doesn't offer anything new or exciting either. It is packed with fan service, and I appreciated that, although it could be looked at as a negative, but it doesn't really feel fresh or innovative. If you watch it once, mainly when it first came out, it'll likely work. However, this film has the least rewatchability to any of the films in the series. Another big issue is with some of the plot holes and past ideas they created in prior films. In Rocky V, Adrian didn't want Rocky to box due to his brain damage, but that never comes up in this film. The only reason he's held back is because of his age. While those two factors may correlate in a way, they don't even hint at the brain damage aspect. Furthermore, the whole plot point of Rocky being retired has been relevant since Rocky III. Here we are, 3 movies later, and he's still retired but trying to box. It's like beating a dead horse at this point. Speaking of silly plot points, the concept of a computer trial bringing Rocky out of retirement is simply absurd. I honestly couldn't think of a better idea to get him out of retirement myself, but that's simply the point. Why do it? My next issue is with the pacing. This film naturally flies by, which is a good thing, but it does feel rushed at times. They definitely could have added another 20 or so minutes to the runtime to flesh out Mason Dixon, Paulie, Robert, and other characters as well. However, some plots and characters get left underdeveloped a bit as well. My next issue comes from Antonio Tava. He is a world-class boxer. I mean, he beat Roy Jones twice, but he's not a good actor. He's by far the worst acted antagonist in the Rocky series. I thought it was smart to keep his lines minimal because he basically sleptwalked through them all. On top of that, as mentioned earlier, his motives are noticeable but completely undersold. He wants respect because people think he's handpicking easy opponents, so they decide to take a nearly 6-year-old man out of retirement to move the needle. That would never work in film or real life. Overall, I have other small issues like with Little Marie's son being atrocious, but at the end of the day, this is still a good send-off for the Rocky franchise. Rocky Balboa gets a 6 out of 10 from me. Let me know what you think about Rocky 6 in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the Rocky series in the comments below. And stay tuned for Creed. See you guys in the next one.